A fast-paced montage of classic WW1 footage: trenches, mud, barbed wire, explosions, charging soldiers. Black and white photos of European despair contrast with colorful, peaceful scenes of 1910s America: factories buzzing, New York City streets, cars, prosperity. Animated maps showing the Western Front in Europe, geographically separate from the USA. Dramatic, epic orchestral music fades into a more curious, mysterious tone. Narrator: energetic, curious tone. For nearly 3 years, the bloodiest conflict the world had ever seen raged across Europe. From the muddy trenches of France to the frozen fields of the East, millions fought and died. But across the Atlantic, the United States watched from the sidelines. A nation of immigrants, led by a president who proudly declared neutrality. But by 1917, everything changed. So what happened? What forced the reluctant giant to abandon its peace and plunge into the slaughter? This is not just a story of battles and generals. This is the story of a nation's transformation. From an isolated republic to a global superpower. This is America's story in World War I. The Neutral Nation, Profits and Principles Visuals. Portrait of President Woodrow Wilson. On-screen text: he kept us out of war. Graphics showing massive growth in American exports to Britain and France. Weapons, food, loans. Animation of ships carrying goods from the US to the UK, with $signs above them. Political cartoons from the era depicting Uncle Sam shrugging at the European conflict. Narrator: when war broke out in 1914, President Woodrow Wilson's message was clear. America must be neutral in thought and deed. For most Americans, that sounded just fine. Why get involved in a messy, ancient European squabble? But neutrality wasn't just an ideal. It was incredibly profitable. American factories worked overtime to supply the Allies with everything from bullets and boots to wheat and steel. American banks loaned billions to London and Paris. The U.S. economy was booming, fueled by a war it wasn't even fighting. However, this neutrality had a major problem. It was heavily tilted towards the Allies. Try as it might, America could not be a mere spectator. The war was about to come knocking on its door. The provocations, Lusitania, and unrestricted warfare. Visuals: photo of the luxurious RMS Lusitania leaving New York Harbor. Animated map showing its route from the US to the UK, with a German U-boat lying in wait. Dramatic, somber animation of the torpedo hitting the ship. It sinks slowly. Headlines: Lusitania sunk. 128 Americans lost. Shocking newspaper photos of the victims. Close-up on a furious President Wilson writing a strong protest to Germany. Narrator: Germany knew this American supplies were keeping the Allies in the fight. Their weapon to counter it was the U-boat, the submarine. In 1915, they declared the waters around Britain a war zone, warning that any ship, civilian or military, could be sunk without warning. Then, on May 7, 1915, it happened. A German U-boat torpedoed the British passenger liner, the RMS Lusitania. Of the 1,198 souls lost, 128 were Americans. The outrage was immediate and visceral. The first time the distant war felt personal. President Wilson was furious, but still not ready for war. He sent stern diplomatic protests. Germany, fearing American entry, temporarily backed down and restricted its U-boat attacks. But the fuse had been lit. The point of no return, the Zimmerman telegram visuals. Dramatic reconstruction. A British intelligence officer at a desk, deciphering a coded message. His eyes go wide. On-screen text of the decoded telegram's most explosive parts. Animated maps showing Germany's proposal, Mexico invading the U.S. Southwest, with arrows pointing to Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The front page of American newspapers with the headline, Germany seeks alliance with Mexico. Narrator: just when tensions seemed to be cooling, Germany made 2 fateful decisions in early 1917. First, they gambled everything and resumed unrestricted submarine warfare. They believed they could starve Britain into surrender before America could possibly mobilize. But the second decision was the real game-changer. It was a secret diplomatic cable sent by German Foreign Secretary Arthur Zimmerman. To Mexico, British intelligence intercepted it, decoded it, and handed it to the Americans. The message was breathtaking. Germany proposed a military alliance with Mexico. If the U.S. entered the war, Mexico should invade its northern neighbor. And the reward? Mexico would reconquer its lost territory in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. When this was published in American newspapers, public opinion exploded. This was no longer about freedom of the seas. This was a direct threat to American sovereignty. The last shred of isolationism evaporated. The mood shifted from outrage to a demand for action. Over there, the doughboys arrive. Visuals. Footage of doughboys, the American soldiers training in the U.S. Massive convoys of troop ships crossing the Atlantic. General John J. Pershing, inspecting troops in France. Montage of American troops arriving in French ports, being cheered by locals. Clips of American industry shifting to full war production, building ships, planes, and rifles at an incredible pace. Narrator? On April 2, 1917, President Wilson went before Congress and asked for a declaration of war, stating, "The world must be made safe for democracy." America was in, but it was utterly unprepared. Its army was tiny. So, the nation mobilized on an unprecedented scale. The Selective Service Act drafted millions of men. These were the doughboys. Under the command of General John J. Pershing, the American Expeditionary Forces began pouring into France in mid-1917. Their arrival was a massive psychological boost for the weary Allies. The Yanks were coming, and with them came the full, awesome power of American industry, which would soon drown the enemy in a tide of men and material. Legacy, the birth of a superpower. Visuals. Montage of key American battles, Cantigny, Château-Thierry, the Meuse-Argonne offensive. Map animation showing the massive American push in the Argonne Forest. Footage of the armistice signing on November 11, 1918. Celebrations. President Wilson arriving in Europe for the Paris Peace Conference, treated like a rock star. The Big Four leaders negotiating. The signing of the Treaty of Versailles. Narrator. The American impact was immediate. In battles like Cantigny and Belleau Wood, the doughboys proved their courage. But their greatest contribution was the massive Meuse-Argonne offensive, in late 1918, the largest American battle in history up to that point. Involving over 1 million U.S. soldiers, it shattered the already crumbling German lines. Exhausted and facing endless fresh American troops, Germany asked for an armistice. The war ended on November 11, 1918. America emerged transformed. It had proven its military might. Its economy was now the strongest in the world. And President Wilson arrived in Europe as a savior, hoping to build a new world order with his 14 points in the League of Nations. But the legacy was complex. While the U.S. gained immense global stature at home, there was a retreat into isolationism. The Senate rejected the League of Nations. The world that was made safe for democracy was fragile. The seeds for an even greater conflict, one where America could not stay neutral, were unknowingly sown. Outro visuals. Narrator on screen are powerful concluding imagery mixing WW1 footage with modern shots of Washington, D.C. and the American flag. End screen with links to other videos, subscribe button, and social media handles. Narrator to camera. Reflective tone. World War I was America's brutal coming-of-age story on the global stage. It was born from provocations on the high seas, a secret telegram, and a final, calculated gamble. In just 19 months of fighting, the United States was forged from a regional power into a global one. The American century had begun. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next journey into history. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.